Hi Jordan, it's Kurt, and I thought I should explain our mock-up a little bit. Here's a picture of it as it was being put together, and I thought I would explain why it looks like it does. It's a standard mock-up um, made with parts that we have on hand in a configuration that's pretty common when you do a tabletop mock-up of a glazing system. So, and why doesn't it look like the gutter detail is probably the big question you're going to get asked. So, at the beginning of the job, this was the gutter detail, and there were all these notes about draining things out and last line of defense. And we had to work out a solution for that. Now, what's shown here is our typical skylight system. And as with all super sky systems, the barrier for water and air is at the top of the glass. It's sealed to the panel. The panel goes into the gutter and around and then back up the glass. Our barrier's at that top surface. Our standard framing, which is what's drawn here, then drains out at the bottom of the bars. That isn't going to work for this gutter, so we had to come up with a different solution. That brings me to our drawings. And bear with me. So we had to make bars that drained at the top of the bar. Our main barrier for waterproofing is still at the top of the glass, to the gutter liner, back over, and through the glass. Everything we do is based on that because gravity is always trying to pull water into the system, and because we're horizontal, it can't drain out very fast. So we expend a lot of effort to never let it in. So here's our bar, and it's a little bit different looking than the other page. Excuse me. Let's look at the drawing for the mock-up and what we did make. So it's forced glass samples, and then the bars make a cross, which is a standard shape. And we have a crossbar here. That's a typical bar, but not one we've put on this job. Here's our typical rafter, where someone thought that it needed to be angled like the ridge. This is not a ridge detail. This is actually a rafter. So let's just copy that and go back to the other details, and I can show you what I mean. So here's our copy, and if I take this and move it and put it over our detail on page A7, you'll see it's exactly the same. And I'm just going to paste it here for a minute, and you can see there's all these notches in intersecting bars. And that's how we drain the metal underneath. Our barrier is still here. Top of glass to the wet seal, over the retainer, wet seal in a gasket, back to the top of the glass. We do have a backup system. That backup has this big pocket for drainage, and then this would be a horizontal bar coming over, and it drains into the rafter. It has these drip edges to make sure the water positively drips. And then we built a capillary trap, it's called, and we put another drip inside that. So if anything would, by surface tension, stick, it gets stripped off at this point and then forced down and drains into that pocket. So that's perfectly standard, and this bar I have. And so the question would be, well, this bar intersects that rafter. How come we're not using that bar? And my point would be that we are. I've just modified it to build a gutter out of it. So let me show you that here. And here's our sample from the mock-up with our crossbar that we're not using, but is the standard piece that I would have. And let me see if I can show you why it's not different, which is probably confusing. So we have our bar in here for the gutter, and I'm going to paste the one from the sample right over the top. And if you look close, you'll see that the glazing system here is all exactly the same. You know, where I'm holding the glass is identical to our typical bar. Our barrier still happens at the top of the glass and comes through. It's getting a little crowded with this picture. All that I did is I took away this little ear that normally would hold glass, and I put some arms in here to hold various sheet metal parts of the gutter. And now I'll move my little standard crossbar away again, and you'll see that the pocket that overlaps into the rafter is exactly the same as it would have been as it is in the mock-up you have. All that I've done is play with the framing below. It has no impact on the drainage system. It's just designed to accommodate a gutter and a perimeter type condition. So the mock-up may not look like the gutter, but it's depicting the system exactly as we would plan to build it. It's just using a more typical bar. It'll be weeks, months before I get this bar in-house. And at that point we could do something, but right now it's custom ordered to make this gutter happen as it needs to be done. Try to bear in mind that the only thing we've changed is the structural part of the bar where it makes connections. The glazing part is still exactly the same. And more importantly, our main system is always an exterior barrier. In this one we have a backup gutter that's below that, and that I'm sealing some joints, but most of the system at that level is not sealed for a lot of reasons we could discuss elsewhere. But it is tested to pass water from the horizontal to the sloping, and then it exits out. So anyway, I hope that helps understand why our mock-up looks different than this detail. It has to do with material availability and special bars that we have to order to make this gutter the way it needs to be. Those initial comments were right on the money. It just took a lot of effort to design something that could perform that. Thank you.